Welcome back. Secret House Against the World. Secret House Against album reviews, Tokyo-based hip-hop art and culture conversations. You guys know me and Jet. We're also here with the boy Dez.
What's up, guys?
Yeah. Make sure you don't put the mic into this part of the headphone because it'll pick up the...
right now?
Not really, but we good. But anyways, yes. Today we're back to discuss the 11th album by Brownsville Ka, The Thief Next to Jesus. It is 14 songs, about 35 minutes. It came out, I think, on August 19th. It was a surprise drop from the God, and so we've assembled today to discuss it. What we like to do when we get into an artist that we haven't discussed before, we often talk about how we know them. We have reviewed one of the last albums that Ka did back in 2022. I think we did Woeful Studies, or was it Languish Arts?
We did Languish Arts.
All right, we only did one of them that time because I forget why. But yeah, we're back to discuss this one. And Dez, how do you know Ka?
I know him through Honor Killed the Samurai.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I know him.
That's quite a while ago. I
believe
forget what year that dropped.
2018 or some shit, right?
2019, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Because, Ka is, Brownsville Ka is a New York MC artist who's been holding it down for the better part of more than almost 20 years. Yeah. I first heard of him on Firehouse, the track on the Jizza Below the Surface album, I want to say, which he had a fundamentally different style and approach than he's had in his music over the last decade and a half. And I think that it's safe to say that he's one of the defining stylers of the last 15, 20 years. He ushered in kind of a new generational sound. Him and Rock Marciano really kind of exemplified and pushed the kind of minimal drumless, listen to the bars style approach that so many people picked up. And I think a lot of people are moving past that, but we also still have some incredible artists who are carrying on that tradition of don't necessarily bob your head, but keep your head still and listen to the words here. The Sun Mundi Clown Cat album is similar in approach, and I know that Ka is one of Sun Mundi's favorites. I highly, if you are a fan of Ka, go check out that review that we did. Check out that album. It is phenomenal. Also check out the review that was written by the homie Dash Lewis in Pitchfork. Phenomenal album. But we're here today to discuss Ka, and 11th album from him, man. Should I go ahead and get it off on what I think about it?
Let's launch into it.
So I am a fan of Ka, and I do hold him in the highest regard of writers in hip hop. I think he's one of the best to ever do it, so to speak. He's just so precise with his raps and so incredibly vivid, and just has so many incredible bars. But the reason one of this album, the first thing that stood out to me is it a bit more colorful, vibrant, and boom bap-ish than his work over the last
and Woeful Studies
several albums, I'd say. The first track is very boom bap-ish, and he hasn't really started an album with that kind of intensity or frequency since Knight's Gambit, I think.
You felt this was boom bap-ish?
Yes.
The first song?
The first song was,
comparatively to the last several albums, for sure.
So sorry to get off track, but boom bap and drumless, is that in the same kind of
some people
drumless would not have boom bap on it, but it could be sampled.
Boom bap is inherently it's the onomatopoeia of the drums, right? But at the same time, a lot of people call this and then the more Griselda type stuff neo boom bap.
Neo boom bap.
That's a designation that has been, I feel like it's started to go out of fashion.
I think I wrote an article about that a while ago. It might still be online. I wrote about neo boom bap and how it's kind of like a misnomer for what people are doing.
I'd like to read that.
Yeah, it might be up. I don't know. I wrote it years and years ago, but yeah. Like I was saying, I think it starts. Martyr's Reward is a little close, but it's still solemn and a kind of a simple guitar loop. Honor Killed the Samurai is a little bit more echo chambery boom bap, and this one's uses a lot of samples and more drums towards that conventional kind of sounding hip hop. But I also think it has to do with the gospel, spiritual, and kind of Black American music tradition that he's relying on here to deliver his kind of concept. And so for that, I really like it because I have to admit that over the while I really like Ka's music, it's not a lot of stuff that I've gone back to over the last few years with his work, just because I kind of find it a bit more audio bookish than I really want to get down with. When I listen to it, it's so incredibly dense, and peeling back those layers is a really important, fun part about his music. But I think this one is just a little bit more accessible, a little bit more forward in the concept, and and it kind of gives me what I want from Ka. I kind of want a little bit more drums and rhythm when it comes to him than a lot of the kind of sonic soundscapes that he creates. And I think that, that's all a personal perspective. I know people, every time he drops, it's an album of the year for a lot of his fan base and a lot of people who are even just coming on to his work in his catalog. But this one, I actually really, really like this album. I think it's easy to read. I think the concept is there. I don't think it's ambiguous. I like it.
I think the fact that the album is so conceptually interesting does a very, very lot of a large amount of heavy lifting for the kind of more difficult, less accessible elements of the record. Yeah. Something that I think a lot of people really love about Ka, maybe something I've struggled with Ka before, is that I'm not a bar whisperer. I like to sit down and listen to the music and try and analyze what's being said, but I'm not good at catching what is being delivered a lot of the time. Things go over my head pretty easily. Yeah. I'm not very good at listening unless I have the lyrics put down in front of me. And basically everything Ka's put out in the last 5 years is
more than that.
All bars.
If you go back, he tends to take a concept and write it like a dissertation. Yes. It's well beyond your creative writer MC where they're like, yo, let's rap about being a candle. It's with his shit, on Orpheus, it's Greek mythology. On Knight's Gambit, it's chess. On Honor Killed, it's samurai shit. On Woeful Language Studies, it's educator teacher type of stuff. And on this one, it seems to focus on spirituality more from a Christian level and its relationship with black struggle.
And that's something that's been so interesting. He's done such a really amazing job of threading that needle between this sort of examination of Christianity as an empowering force within African American culture, as well as being an oppressive force, and also the connection that those things have with rap music, which in turn, the kind of hip hop culture, rapping about money, rapping about sex, all of these things, which is what you see in the first track, as elements of both empowerment of black culture, while also being an element that is kind of, if we're going to get into the Telecommunications Act, etc., something that is antisocial and something that is actively harmful towards black people. And he does a really incredible job of examining all of those different elements. And
So I have a question then. You said that this is his most accessible album. Do you think
maybe not most accessible, but I think it's easier
in the last 5-6 years?
Compared to Orpheus or the Honor Kill the Samurai, these seem to be more niche things, but Christianity is literally the backbone of America, right? Maybe that's why it's more accessible.
I think so.
I think it has to do with drawing from the musical tradition of black spiritual music. It just has more an update, an upbeat kind of melodic approach. He uses, it has a little bit. I think that this album, if you were to give it to your more mainstream oriented listener, it's easier for them to kind of be okay, I get why this is dope, as compared to Orpheus or as compared to Woeful. They'll be well, these are really good raps, but it's an audiobook.
Also, because the samples and the production are also gospel oriented, you have this kind of continued through line. It feels very whole in that respect. If you look at it from a holistic approach, the gospel kind of is not only through delivery, through lyrics, but through the production, and then also some of the skits and some of the kind of, there's a bit of guidance provided through the record, through some of these little skits and audio samples that are at the beginning and end of quite a few of the tracks on the album.
There's a formula that Ka uses on a lot of his music, and he uses on this album, he uses a lot of vocal media samples to match the choruses, the choruses and bars, to kind of split these ideas into different perspectives on the same idea. Everything is basically a double or triple entendre, so to speak, multiple meanings centered on allowing us to deconstruct them in different ways. So it's he talks a lot about the lived experience of material conditions of black struggle, and the idealism of the church and spiritualism and the contradictions therein. And he compares, he also compares it to like the music we listen to and the media that we embrace, and how building a community is more important than the gospel, so to speak. So perhaps it's time that we build new forms of spiritual empowerment towards self-sufficiency and material gains, not faith. And on this, he's talking a lot about like being a person that wants to help, and this is as much about personal growth as it is like a condemnation of the things that got him through a lot of the times that were difficult for him, and a lot of the things that are out to actually destroy us. He says like, I started with pimp bars, I'm not sure if these are memoirs, and like he's here for you. And it's a really kind of tremendous but like hard material look at spiritualism, but not material as like in terms of like materialism or like a scientific socialism.
I do
or something.
think there is a bit of that as well. I do think
he's talking about the like the conditions of blackness in the struggle. So of course it's like the real world experience of him, and that's where I find like a lot of interest into this album. Like you look at the first song, right, which is called what, bread, wine, body, blood. And like it starts off with this media sample that's like, pay attention to the verse, and like, so each of his verses on this, each of the words on the title are basically what each one of those stanzas in those verses are. The bread is in money, wine is in smoking and alcohol, the body is in body is in selling our body and sex, and how we treat our blood, family and people. And it's like another broken message, you holding precious because your toe tap. Like he's not being so reductionist or respectability politics that like, oh, if you like that shit, like you're kind of dumber. But he is highly, like, very specifically pointing out some of the things within the community that he feels are detrimental, that cause his life also to be a part of the struggle, and how faith didn't necessarily pull him out of that as much as in retrospect as it might have. But he still used these things that are so inherent to the black experience. So it draws on this great American Negro tradition of spiritualism and overcoming, but he flips it on its head and has all these double, triple meanings. Each track is just so meticulously prepared. And Ka, like we all know he could rap really well, but just talking about the production on this album, for one, he's so incredible at preparing the canvases that he wants to throw his paint at. And he's not an artist that goes with an untreated canvas. He has to prepare his own work, and he does it incredibly. So dope at creating a moment, an experience. For example, on Collection Plate, he like, it's like a really what the fuck type of beat. It's a simple loop that isn't rhythmic or melodic, but he adds these subtle elements to keep it interesting and kind of keep your ear yearning for the return of certain sounds. It's like offbeat, but also like so perfect in the timing. It's almost like Dilla-esque, where it's like it's almost like jazz-esque the way it subverts your expectation on what it is. And if you just listen to it casually, you might think that's like, oh wow, this is just a truncated loop that's just repeating and not really vibey. But what he does to that type of, what he does with those type of beats and with those type of rhymes, there's very few that really can manage to do that and keep you engaged. One of the other beats, hold on, let me check out my notes, but there's like so like, let me go to Collection Plate and play it right here, right? It's a very odd like loop with this yellow sample that, and then like a flourish, right? And so the chorus is like, if you really wanted to bless me, you would have left me that collection plate, which is like a whole different part about
institutional greed within the church. This idea that like, if you're, prosperity gospel, like all this money that's flowing out from poor people and then within to the hands of the wealthy.
Right. You're giving me wishes, but you're keeping, you know what I mean?
You're keeping
we're all going through the same things. The best thing that's going to help us is not well wishes. It's going to be fucking actual money, right? But the beat, right? The first media sample of the song is saying like, we black folks, like it's saying black folks are the most praising people, but why are we at the bottom of so many areas in society? Well, the complexion plate, we need fucking money. And there's like the way that this beat is constructed, right? It's just this thing of the woman vocal sample, and then it turns into a flourish, right? And it's little parts, and then at the back end of it, that guitar emerges a little bit more and more, and at the back end, that little guitar flourish happens more, and he adds a male vocal sample to it, and it's only a 2-minute song, but it keeps you kind of anticipating, like there's little things there that make it not an incomplete beat, which some people who like people that love hip hop but have an idea about the formula, they're like, without the drums it's incomplete, it's an incomplete beat. But no, this is meticulously prepared and absolutely intentional and not simple. It's really, really more complex than a kind of like a callous listen would get. There's so much going on production wise in this album, and I'm seeing, like, the more I listen to it, I hear the intentionality of it, and it's a masterclass. And he's always been really good at that, but something about the usage of a lot of these sounds and approaches, and this might be my like top 3 Ka albums for me, actually. If not, I'm still very new to it, so I don't want to give it like, you know, like recency bias. But man, the borrowed time beat too.
Yeah, the borrowed time beat I really like.
Damn.
His flow's a little faster on that as well. Like
Actually,
with Grace, we face the firing squad. It's all canon.
Hey,
It's my favorite verse.
Bro, it's all canon. It's also all fucking canon, like history, like
history and canonization in terms of Christianity.
Like, they God's name in vain. Don't blame if they can't blasphemy. Blasphemy, bro. And then it's got another media sample criticizing organized religion, separating and not bringing together. I have a lot of verses, like lyrics written down from this, and thoughts on it. We don't really get into that too much on this, man, but there's just so many. Like on Collection Plate, the bar, wish for a bun in the oven, just not while loving my teen whiz. A bun about bread. Schemes of cooking up bread had us busy holding toast.
It's crazy,
bro. Like, the thing about every single verse on this album is that there's undoubtedly multiple bars that are just like, wow, has anybody ever put that together in that way ever in the history of the English language? He really is a 1 in a million type of writer. And there's a lot of, you know, Daylight and a lot of battle rappers who are really meticulous with the triples and the doubles and shit. There's a lot of guys who are really good at doing it, but what Ka does is there's an economy of languages happening here, economy of words. He's so just like simple with it. Like, he doesn't have, everything is so perfectly placed. There's no filler bars here. There is not a single filler bar here. Everything has intention and meaning, and it's just fucking, it's so crazy. Broken Rose Window. Before you air the gun, don't forget where you from. Message to the black cops. Lie, plot, steal, and drive Hot Wheels. Still living in the Matchbox. Bro, Matchbox, Hot Wheels, cars, yep. Fucking, yo. Don't forget where you from. Message to the black cops. This shit was easy. Just listen to what the Lord say. Had a lot of needs. They couldn't feed me with amore. That's amore, bro. Yep. So many of these songs just kind of, like, my first listen to it, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. This is Ka. But if you sit down and you start really trying to figure out like what is happening on this is an album. This is another one of those albums that rewards your scholarship.
Yes.
It rewards it's like cinema. There's a lot of movies that reward your scholarship. The more you watch it, the more you figure out how intentional the camera angles are, how intentional the music score is, how intentional every single line of dialogue works. When you watch No Country for Old Men, it's precise. You know what I mean? There's not a wasted moment, not a wasted shot, not a wasted line. Ka is like that musically. Everything on this album is just nuts, and each song is a bit of a dissertation on a specific idea. Soul and Spirit. Hold on, just fucking. Wait, where is it at? Do I have like the wrong? Oh, here.
Soul and Spirit.
Right. The rhythm and the beat is secondary.
What has made gospel live is the message that the rhythm and the beat carry.
Right. Back in the trap, getting snared is the bass line. Bass line of it is like the bass line. Like, yo, back in the trap, like these are condemnations on not black culture, but popular culture, and how popular culture has in the music industry and so many other social forces have us down this path that is obviously not in line with the spiritualism that we're supposed to use as the backbone for those things, man. Like it gets a little bit weird when he's talking about like women making sex raps and shit. You know what I mean? You could take it that way, but
sure.
He's not necessarily being like, yo, you're not supposed to do that. He's just saying like, think about what that's supposed to look like.
I think maybe the reason that there might be I'm not even going to say a backlash necessarily, but a negative response to those particular bars is the fact that he doesn't really target institutions on that level. He's kind of, he doesn't move towards an idea of like a patriarchy or you know how capitalism coerces women into sex work. He kind of just goes like, yeah, I support empowerment. But
there's a bit of ambiguity on exactly what his thoughts are on these things. And I think
given how precise he is, like across the board on the rest of the album, I can see why people might be like have some objections to that. I will take it in good faith, just because the rest of the album is so meticulous. But yeah, I think you know, for the most part, he does like a really amazing job of kind of identifying a lot of these kind of institutional things, and you know, the album has a lot of hope and love for black people, like inside of it. You know, especially on
that's one of the most important parts about the album, in my opinion. It's like he is saying that we need to find new forms because we will survive. There's a lot of I forget what the chorus is, but like if one makes it, we all make it. Like there's a lot of like faith and hope.
Yeah, hope is beautiful, as what he says on Beautiful,
him right? defining the resilience of not only himself but of the black struggle. I get the impression that this didn't hit for you all that well, Deza. Like it's not a bad thing.
No, I mean I enjoyed it, and you know the listen through was nice. And of course I'm not so deep into Ka that like I know all of his discography. I have listened to every album, which I think I'm gonna go back and check out the Orpheus one just to get a feeling for it.
I fucking don't know shit about Greek mythology, so I listen to that. I'm just like, that must mean a Medusa or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, this one is easier for me to digest, and I feel like it's more accessible in that regard.
But I just I get it, you know, the drumless beats and all that, but I felt the tone and the overall the ambiance was very similar track to track. I felt like I could go from track 1 to track 14 and it wouldn't feel too different. He could have rearranged the order of those and it's still, I feel like, musically, not like content wise, but musically it would feel like it's not out of place.
These are you know, especially the double album that he put out last year, 2 years ago now. Woeful Studies, 22. Language Arts.
2022.
You know, those are not fun listens unless you are someone who's really into bar whispering. If you're someone who really, you know, and Ka is a treat if you love to, like, again, like we said, this rewards how academic you want to be with your listening. And I think, given that, I feel like recently online I have seen this kind of trend of anti-intellectualism where people post memes where it's like, author, the chair was blue. English teacher. This represents the
and people happening since like 2010.
And there's been, you know, this
it's a side effect of postmodernism.
Exactly.
In our in American individualism.
But it's like even a cursory glance at the lyrics on this album demonstrate that no, art has intention, and that you are, you know, great art often does reward repeated listens, repeated consumption, and paying attention to the content. It's totally fine, especially on the first listen. I didn't care for this on my first listen, to be honest. I was like, car record, here we go.
I liked it my first listen, but I didn't really settle into it until my third or fourth listen.
I think I just didn't have the right mentality. I kind of went into it, you know, like fresh off the the Big Flower album and stuff, you know. Yeah. Coming into this one, I was like, oh, okay, like let me check it out. Right. But now after what you said, where it's more of a thesis almost in like an album form, it makes a lot more sense to look at it through that lens. And I think if I re-listen to it, I will pick up more on those.
But you know, I mean, I think also like there are plenty of listeners who just might not be for them, and I don't mean that in a condescending way. I don't mean this as in like, oh, you just don't get it.
I think it's completely fair.
I think it's totally fine to like listen to an album like this and just be like, you know, this is not for me. That's in the same way that you could watch Koyanis Katsi and think, sure, yeah, I see the art here, but like not for me. Or you listen to Steve Reich and think, yeah, I
mean, watch Citizen Kane, and people are just like, eh. But you know, for me, like, as we're talking about art and poetry, especially on the Big Flowers, where I was like, freeform art is great, and it can open up opportunities for you to find beauty in a deadlock, right? In a deadbolt. Like, you can find different meaning in a lot of things. With Ka, I feel as though it is very intentional, and in order to kind of get those things, you have to think about the scholarship that he's putting into this in order to catch the meaning. And that's what I'm finding fun about this album, is trying to figure out exactly what the message is, because, you know, I grew up, I was, you know, Catholic until I was like 12 years old. Yeah. I was taught that my entire life, and I didn't become God body until I was born. I was born God when I was 15. So I started doing the scholarship beyond Catholicism before that. But like with this album, I just feel as though you don't want to put this on before you go to the function.
No,
you won't go. We're out here in
you won't show up at the function if you put this on first.
Like, you know, like even with me in reading theory, like I can't just pick up any book and be like, all right, it's time to read this. Sometimes it's theory. Sometimes I need a little bit more. Like, we need different. You know, we want different foods. Yeah. And for me, I'm one of the people actually. Deza, like, I have tremendous respect for Ka. I love Ka's work. I see why people love it. I'm not the biggest fan of Ka at all. Like, I haven't gone back and listened to Woeful Studies or like Orpheus or even Honor or Gambit in a long time, because I don't necessarily always want to vibe with this kind of drumless minimal thing. But if I have to discuss it as art and what I'm really actively trying to get out of it, which is what I kind of tried to do here. Yeah. I'm like, wow, the brilliance is off the charts. Like, this is not going to be one of my favorite albums of the year, but this has all the potential to be the best album of the year to me. It clicks, it ticks enough boxes in terms of high quality, beautiful art. It's just that sometimes I want to read simple poems by Jack Kerouac, and other times I want to read more, you know, different types of poetry. You know what I mean? Like, I can handle a sonnet right now versus a fucking limerick. You know what I mean? It's like, depends on what you want out of it. Yeah, and with this album, I just am happy that I have a Ka album that really kind of struck a chord with me. Yeah. Because the spirituality strikes a chord with me. I got out of that. I'm a materialist now. The streets strike a chord with me because I'm 40 years old. I grew up under tough conditions. You know what I mean? At times I was scared of gunplay. I was, you know, selling and doing, you know, a lot of dumb things that maybe Ka also has like a symmetry with me on those type of things, right? Not a New York style, very West Coast, but this album speaks to me, and a lot of the messages resonate with me more than the samurai approach, even though he did a great job with that, or the Greek approach. And this album, or Dr. Yenlo, like, you know, Dr. Yenlo might be my favorite Ka work, but this is probably hidden 2 or 3, and I'm happy about it. Like, I really love this one. Yeah, I really do like this. Again, it's just, he's an artist that rewards scholarship. There's a few artists that are like that, and people think that, like, like Eminem rewards scholarship? Like, I don't necessarily think so. You know, like they're difficult bars and people are like, oh, you didn't get that. And it's like, sometimes there are like, wow, he did that and that's great. And it rewards a certain type of scholarship. This rewards almost an academic, almost like intellectual look into these things where they would be considered like, yeah, it's like The Wire versus Breaking Bad. Both of them are doing great high art, but The Wire, like, there's college courses about, you know, season 4, and Ka is The Wire. Ka is The Wire of rap. He's The Wire of rap.
Not to put any pressure on friend of the show Caltrops Press, but I absolutely cannot wait to read a Caltrops Press Thief Next to Jesus, if he feels so inclined to write such a thing.
I don't know if I really care to see him get into like theology all that much, but I'm sure he'll freak it.
I mean, the way he'll freak it, the way Joe does these things. Again, if Joe chooses not to do this, I get it. Yeah. Fine, fair enough. Maybe this is just not his lane.
Yeah.
But I would love to see Joe get into his theology back.
I'm sure he'll
freak it.
I think that this album is really kind of straightforward. You know who probably did pretty well describing this, who I don't necessarily care for, is a certain professor. And like I'm sure he was able to pick it out.
Like I haven't seen his content, but
I don't pay attention to it. But yeah, I'm this is like an album made for that, and one that I wouldn't. It's like the Bob Sun review that he did. It's like one that I think is fine. Like your postmodern neoliberal critical eye probably works very well for this one. But yeah, this is great. 10 out of 10. No, I'm just kidding. We don't do that here. Favorite songs on the album?
Strong 10.
Lord Have Mercy, Him and I, True Holy Water, Borrowed Time are my favorites on this one.
Borrowed Time, Soul and Spirit, Collection Plate.
All I Spoke was dope, but not tracks that could harm. Heroin, like tracks on your arm, bro.
Yeah, Borrowed Time, Soul and Spirits, Threads, Beautiful. Yeah, there's some crazy bars on this, man. Human nature ain't changed. Hope the gods adjust. Off broken window. It's just, wow.
Men of cloth tend to be lost, need new to be woven. And we need real freedom. Stop believing in this falsehood.
Falsehood. Yep.
Bro, like there's just like, yeah, he just.
Playing my death. Fuck playing submission.
The screaming on True Holy Water was quite distressing.
I like it.
I was.
That's the Holy Ghost, bro.
I know. I love me some fucking abrasiveness. I love me some fucking terror in my art. But like, I was listening to this walking home the other night, late at night, and I was just like, yo, this is making me so uncomfortable.
And you're like, same party bars get you partly charged and revoked, and you're like, I'm dancing, I'm twerking. Me and Ice Spice. Yeah, but this is a great one. Yeah, this is a great one. I know that this is going to end up on a lot of people's top 10s, just like Woeful Studies and Language Arts. I don't know if it'll hit mine, but that's only because there's been just a tremendous number of albums this year, and it's only getting crazier. And I'm still waiting on that for y'all to hear that K the I shit, because I like that one a lot. Is that the Holy Ghost?
Maybe.
Yeah. That's what I assumed. I assumed it was somebody catching the Holy Ghost.
Somebody's coy, yeah.
If you like Ka and you appreciate Ka, I'd highly, highly, highly recommend Sun Mundi, bro. Like Sun Mundi, Clown Cat, Lived and Born. That album it's definitely in my top 10 of the year. Yeah.
I recommended that for the
Speak up.
Yeah. 100 likes and we will force Desert to wear the headphones.
Yeah. Why don't you want to wear the headphones?
I thought if I spoke like loud enough that I would be able to like.
Yeah, but you don't know when you're being too quiet when you don't have the headphones on.
I'm looking at the waveform and stuff. Me and you are like the same almost.
Yeah, but I'm awesome.
Not that little part where we told you to speak up right there, though.
The jet's blue. I'm red.
No, we good. Yeah. Anywho,
Secret House.
Yo, support us if you feel the need. Like, subscribe. Those are free things that you can do. Join the Discord if you guys want to really talk, because I've been trying to get it more cracking.
The link will probably be expired because we don't know how this works.
I put that on Jet last week.
Yeah, this week it's Mega's fault. But yeah, just let us know in the comments if it doesn't work or just hit us on Instagram or whatever. Like you can find us.
We're not asking for publicity and fame, but to see our own boys and girls be able to stay in school and make something good, that within itself is enough reward. Yeah.